I always wanted to do that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ghoulfriends. I'm Jamie, and I'm here with my cousin Alonna. And today we are playing devil's advocate for all of the monsters, killers, and just all around baddies in horror movies. Because some of them just really don't get their day in court, so to speak. So that being said, we're not doing this in like a by law, like a courtroom kind of way, just more morally looking at each monster, killer, whatever, case by case. So, and if there are any specific that you guys want us to address, go ahead and put it in the chat. And also in the chat, you are welcome to play prosecution and, throw some curveballs and give us some challenges.
Yeah, you are welcome to build your case and build your case, shut us down, tell us to fuck off. Don't do that. We're just trying to have some fun. Otherwise, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Anyway, so the first one I want to get into is one I know we already talked about. So we're kind of, we kind of had a jump start, but I want to talk about Billy and Stu from Scream.
Yeah. And that's a good one because it's a duo. So we've got two people we got to look at. Mm-hmm. And, their cases are different. Their situations are different. So.
Right. I think that what is most intriguing, and you don't find it out until Scream 2 clearly, but Billy's whole motivation is his mother abandoning him because his father was having an affair with Sydney's mother.
Right. Okay.
Well, you could say that, that gave him PTSD. But in Scream 2, we learn that his mother is prone to the same violent tendencies that he displays. Hence why his mother was the killer in part 2, trying to avenge his death.
Right.
So you have to sit back and you have to think, okay, here's a guy who's clearly fucked up in the head.
Mm-hmm.
His parents got divorced. His father was, a rich womanizer, and this and that, the next thing. So you have to kind of figure, okay, there's a psychological aspect to his motive. He wanted revenge, yes. However, it was already predisposed in him to have those violent tendencies.
Right. Yes. So he had the trauma of his mother leaving, and then also that genetic predisposition. And especially since between the ages of, I think it's like 16 and 24 is when a lot of psychological issues will pop up for people, such as psychoses and schizophrenia and things such as that.
Right. So the thing that I find the most interesting is how in Scream 3, they continue to build on that further, and they blame it on Roman, who is revealed to be Sydney's half-brother, for those who have not seen Scream 3. If you have not seen Scream 3, I recommend you exit right now. There's going to be some spoilers. Not that we don't love having you here, but there's going to be some spoilers. But so you figure you have Roman, who reveals that he gave Billy and Stu the quote-unquote motivation because his mother was actually also Sydney's mother, but at the time she was known as Rena Reynolds. So he went around and got the videotape footage of Billy's father, sleeping with Sydney's mother and all this stuff, and he filled it into Billy's mind. But again, you have to look into the fact that he was already predisposed to it. He just had the right ammunition at the right time. I think that regardless if that would have happened to him or not, he still would have committed some sort of violent crime, and you would have seen him in another movie. At least the basis of his character in another movie for another type of violent crime, because it was already installed in him. And, who knows what his father was like. We only really see a quick glimpse of his father in part 1. And his father is kind of a cocky bastard, to be honest.
He's an attorney.
Yeah. His father, first of all, is an attorney, like you said, but his father's also a cocky bastard because, he always says, check the phone book for Christ's sake. Like, You know, so
Mm-hmm.
it's clear that he not only had the predisposition to violence, but he had the untouchable mentality. Like, my dad's an attorney, nothing's going to happen.
Right. Yeah. And that all being said about his father, I think it's probably safe to assume that Billy's home life wasn't the greatest. You know, that if his father's so high and mighty of himself and also an attorney, he's going to be absent a lot because if you don't know, lawyers are extremely busy all the freaking time. They don't really have social lives of their own. So my guess is that he was absent a lot, and when he was around, he was probably just berating Billy.
Right. Right. Like, you know, the trophy fathers, trophy son, and trophy wife, and trophy,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Well, when you look at Stu, the only motivation he gives is that he gave into peer pressure and that he's far too sensitive. You don't learn much about Stu's family, just that clearly his parents also have money just based on the size of their fucking house.
Right. That and the fact that they're not there for an entire weekend during during these murders. Like, where are they? Are they out of town on business? They're not going to come home for their son
Right.
during this time.
Right. But at the same time, you have to wonder what are they like that he cares enough about their opinion that he makes a statement that they're going to be so mad at him for what he did. Now, are they going to be mad at him because they care about him, or are they going to be mad because he just ruined their reputation?
Right. Or are they on him a lot for being the class clown? Because he is. He's a big goof. He doesn't take anything seriously. You know, I could definitely see parents who are wealthy, who are well off, you know, getting frustrated with their almost adult child who's acting like that, who has no motivation or anything. So my guess would be kind of the same thing. Parents on his case all the time.
Right. Right. And, you know, when he says he gave in to peer pressure because he's far too sensitive, but in the end, he all of a sudden has this like second wind and he tries to attack Sydney again. So you think by this point, Billy's already incapacitated. We know Billy's not dead till the very end. But at this point, Billy's already incapacitated. So now Stu's acting on his own. That wasn't peer pressure. He did that on his own. He acted on his own in that respect. So maybe part of it was peer pressure at first.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he also had some kind of predisposition that kind of made him rationalize what he was doing and just saying, well, your mother flashed her shit all over town when she was Sharon Stone and this and that. He's almost Billy's lapdog in a way,
Yeah.
but he also, you can see, can think for himself as he clearly does at the very end of the film.
Right. Well, and I wonder if he really was thinking for himself or if he was like, he's already this deep in it. He's killed how many people? Like, if he's going to live and not go to jail, Sydney has to die.
Right.
And maybe it wasn't so much peer pressures. Maybe there's two possibilities. He was afraid of Billy because Billy's fucking psycho. We know this. He's ready to turn on his girlfriend in a heartbeat. You know, Stu might think, well, what's keeping him from changing his mind and doing it to me, which he does.
Right.
Or is it that because Stu's parents are never there, he has no siblings, he has his girlfriend and Billy, and that's pretty much it. So maybe he's just lonely.
Right.
And Billy makes him feel understood.
Right. Because you figure Billy took his girlfriend away from him. I mean, he killed Stu's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
They never confirm which one of them it is, but you could tell by the way Billy looks at him that it was definitely Billy that did that one.
Yeah.
And, you just kind of have to look at the fact of, what was, the reasoning. And what's interesting was it kind of like he was afraid of Billy, or was it kind of like he wanted to be Billy? Because clearly he had a crush on Sydney.
Right.
is that? And he says, I always had a thing for you. And she says, in your dreams. So was it really that he was being controlled by Billy, or was it more or less he kind of wanted to be Billy? Because like you said, he was clearly lonely, and he was probably held on some kind of pedestal in a lot of ways, because who knows what his parents were like. So maybe he wanted to be Billy, because Billy got away with murder, literally, for the entire movie. Billy fucking got away with murder.
Right, they both did.
Yeah.
So and he was able to do that with Billy's help.
Right. So maybe he saw that and was like, I want that life.
Right.
Yeah.
Could be.
Who's next?
I would like to move my cat.
Sorry.
Our special guest star this week. One of my all-time favorite. So I mean, not all-time favorite. There's a special place in my heart for all classic horror movies. The Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster. And so
yep.
I just recently, for the first time in a long time, I rewatched the original Frankenstein, the black and white version, the very, very first one. And as I'm watching it, all I can think is how much I feel bad for Frankenstein's monster. One, they call him a monster. Okay, they're the ones who created him. And, okay, so Frankenstein created him. And then if you don't know, Frankenstein, he decided to keep his creation, the monster, locked in the dark for like 3 days because he didn't want to overwhelm him, the monster. And Tari, you're not making this easy, girlfriend. And no, you don't get, no. Sorry. And so, and then he's got this abnormal brain in him because stupid fucking, his name's not Igor, I forget what his actual name is.
Victor Frankenstein.
No, his assistant.
Oh, okay.
It's not Igor, I can't remember what his name is. But he got the wrong brain, he got an abnormal brain, so that worked against Frankenstein. Then he comes into this world and is kept in the dark for 3 freaking days. And during those 3 days, that assistant is like whipping him and like throwing fire in his face and shit, just tormenting him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, of course he's gonna lose his shit and he's gonna freak out and try to break out and he's gonna kill the assistant, which he does. And then he gets out and he kills the little girl and the whole town goes after him and there's a mob and eventually the monster dies.
Yep.
So, and then if you watch at the end, Dr. Frankenstein, no repercussions. None. No one, there's no like, hey, you dug up all these graves, you dismembered all these bodies.
You stole a brain from a science lab,
right.
And the assistant grabbed the wrong brain. He grabbed an abnormal brain.
Right. And so how, and then this thing that you created went out and killed people and killed a little girl. So, but no repercussions. And he's white and he's rich. So he gets away with it. And he gets to go on and have his, wonderful life and get married to the beautiful girl and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, his creation just fucking burned to death after being alive for 4 agonizing fucking days.
And the creation didn't even know what was happening.
No, he had no idea whatsoever.
Yeah, and if you watch the movie, when he kills the little girl, he doesn't understand what he's doing.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, it's wrong, but he doesn't understand that is wrong to do.
Right. Yeah, so that one just breaks my heart. And it upsets me that everyone's like, oh yeah, the monster. And it's like, he's not a monster. He's a lost soul, and he was thrust into this horrible world and was treated awfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As most of us are, anyway. That's another story, though. But Here's a little pet peeve about Frankenstein. When people call the monster Frankenstein,
yeah.
it's Frankenstein's monster. And I understand if you haven't seen it or you haven't seen it in a long, long time, you're not going to know, but it's not Frankenstein. Frankenstein is the one who creates him.
Yes. And in my personal opinion, Dr. Frankenstein is the monster.
He is, and he starts to show signs that he's fucking going insane too.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly he's not in his right mind to make a man out of random parts from a graveyard. But you know, as the movie progresses, you can see he's not all in there either.
Right.
So you know, those in glass houses.
Yeah. That poor creation didn't stand a chance.
I know.
Like, even if the normal brain was used instead, like, he still would have been fucked.
Yeah.
Because you take an infant child and put them in the dark for a couple of days and see what happens.
I like them, yeah. They're not going to turn out too friggin' normal.
No.
Another one that I wanted to talk about that isn't touched on in the original movie but is in the remake is Michael Myers.
Yes.
Now, anybody who knows me, and I say this, I will shout it from the roof. Use your words, Alonna. The rooftop. I am not a fan of Rob Zombie's Halloween remake. However, I do like how they give Michael that backstory, that you understand why he's like that.
Yes, it makes more sense why he killed his sister, because in the original, it's just some little kid just lost his shit and killed his sister, stabbed her to death. Like, how the hell does that make any sense?
Spoke the word again. Like, yeah, that's the one thing I do like about. I'm not picking my nose, by the way. I was fixing my septum ring. Anyway, that's the one thing that I did enjoy about Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007, which is, you know, obviously not the remake part 2. Hated that one. Can't stand it. I'll still watch it, but I don't like it. Anyway, moving on. But, you know, in 1978's Halloween, you don't see that. In the 2018 Halloween, you also don't see that. They also refer to him as just, he went nuts. That's it. Like, there was no rhyme, no reason, nothing. He just, one day, just up and snapped. But in the remake, you see he grows up in a dysfunctional family. His family doesn't have a lot of money. You know, his mother has a questionable job. His mother's boyfriend is clearly verbally and physically abusive to not only his mother, but him as well. His mother's boyfriend makes really disgusting passes at his sister, this and that and the next thing. His sister's verbally abusive to him, you know. And then they mention how his biological father had passed away. So clearly, this kid has a pile of trauma all the way up to here by the time he's like 10 years old. In the remake is how old he's supposed to be, like 10 or something.
Yeah.
So clearly, he's got a pile of trauma all the way up to here. He's being bullied in school because his mother, you know, is an exotic dancer, this, that, and the next thing. And one day, he just decides he's had enough. But the thing that always made me wonder was, for example, and you'll see it if you watch the extended edition of the Rob Zombie Halloween with the deleted scenes put in, which focuses more on him in the hospital when he's a kid. So it makes a lot more sense. Over time, he starts begging Loomis to let him leave or he's going to lose his mind. And clearly Dr. Loomis can't do that. He killed 3 people. But that's what makes me believe that's why he went catatonic, because he was losing his mind. Then you have that janitor who makes the comment and says, you got to learn to live inside your head.
Right. Yeah.
And he almost takes that too literally.
Yeah, I did not like Rob Zombie's remake for the reasons we've already discussed many, many times. But I did really, really like that aspect of it, that he gets a backstory and it makes more sense why he just snapped all of a sudden.
Right. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, some 6-year-old kid is randomly stalking his sister. She just had sex with her boyfriend. Now he's going to go kill her. No, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
And the thing that always bugged me as well, and I preached about this on previous podcasts, is the fact that in Part 2, Halloween 2, the original, we understand now why he's stalking Laurie, because that's his half-sister. Again, in the remake, you see that the reason why he didn't kill his half-sister or his mother is because they were the only two people in his life that did not treat him like shit.
Right.
I mean, the baby couldn't, but in the remake, he wants to reconnect with her. But you see, all of a sudden at the end, he turns on her too because she turned on him because she didn't recognize him. She didn't remember it. She didn't even know she had a fucking brother.
Yeah.
But in the original Halloween 2, they talk about how Laurie Strode is Michael's sister. And in the 2018 Halloween, they completely throw that out the window and say he was just some random mental patient. I'm sorry. You can't build a franchise on 37 fucking years of saying that and then all of a sudden say, by the way, we were just kidding.
Right. Yeah. It's just, it makes no sense. It makes no sense to me. And for the fans, I feel like it's not fair to them because, like, for me, I love the original first and second one. It's with its faults, of course, like many movies are, especially ones that are so much older. But the second one made sense. It was a continuation, and it was well done, and it made sense.
Right.
And I don't know. I felt like it tied up some loose ends, especially with Laurie, the revelation that Laurie is his sister.
Right.
So why would you just completely nix that?
Right. And that's why, I'm excited for the new Halloween. I truly am. Excuse me. But I'm afraid that they're going to nix the rest of what they said because I don't understand why, especially with John Carpenter serving as an executive producer on the 2018 Halloween, why would you avoid that when he literally wrote, produced, and was the main writer on Halloween 1 and 2. He didn't direct it. Rick Rosenthal directed Halloween 2, which is now Nancy Stevens, who plays Marion Chambers. That's his wife. Anyway, don't ask me why or how I know that. Anyway, moving on. But that was directed by Rick Rosenthal. And what I think is very interesting is how John Carpenter literally wrote both Halloween movies, got to the remake, serving as an executive producer, and said, you know what? I was just kidding 40 years ago. Let's just make Michael some random estate mental patient because that'll make him scarier. I think it makes him scarier that that's his sister that he's chasing.
I think it makes it more believable.
Yeah. Like, because you figure if you go with that storyline and you say, okay, he was just some random estate mental patient, but how did he choose her? How did he know to go after her? What was it that, drew him to her?
Yeah.
So you can't really say that if you don't have the thing to back it up.
Right. Yeah.
So that's just always bugged me, but I do like I said, how Rob Zombie gave him the backstory that he didn't get in part 1.
Right. Now, is that what they said? Is that the reason why they dismissed the second one? Is that what they said? Because it makes it scarier if he's just some rando mental patient?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They said that it makes it scarier. But, I mean, I can understand wanting to avoid, from part 4 on, because John Carpenter didn't have a hand in, part 4, 5, 6,
right,
or Resurrection. But I don't understand why he would avoid part 2 and pretend like part 2 never happened.
Right, because it was a seamless continuation.
Right. Like, it flowed absolutely perfect. And you wouldn't even know that it was filmed like 3 years later. It flowed completely perfectly.
Yeah.
And, you figure, but then you bring up, Jamie Lloyd. Okay, so she has a daughter. So is the daughter in the 2018 remake, is that actually Jamie Lloyd?
Right. Yeah. I wondered that too when I first watched it. It was like, wait, that makes zero sense.
But you're forgetting one thing. In Halloween H2O, you see Laurie's in hiding. She's under an assumed name. Who's to say she didn't put her daughter under an assumed name and name her, I think it's Karen, right? Yeah, her daughter acts like a Karen, so I think. Karen.
Yeah, but then there's also the fact that in Halloween 4, Jamie killed her foster mother.
No, she didn't kill her. She almost did, but yeah. I
thought she did.
No. Because if you listen closely in part 5, they say that their parents are in Europe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and Dr. Loomis mentions that she attacked her stepmother.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like really subtle, but you really have to pay attention to it. Because I for the longest time thought she killed her too, but then I was like, what the fuck? She didn't? Anyway. But then she has this random ass fucking son who you only see one time in Halloween H2O, and they say, but here's another thing. Here is another problem. You know, Jamie supposedly died in Halloween 6, yada yada yada, that whole shebang mess.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that they keep from Halloween 4 and 5 that they put into Halloween H2O that not a lot of people pick up on is the fact that Laurie faked her death.
Really?
So if she faked her death and went into hiding, right?
Mm-hmm.
There then opens up this whole other story, whole other can of worms bullshit that because she mentions in H2O that, you know, what the hell's his name? Josh Hartnett, his character.
Yeah.
His father is an abusive, chain smoking addict, blah, 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 blah. But wouldn't that technically be Jamie's father too then?
Maybe, maybe not.
And I always wanted to see more of her and Jimmy. Is Jimmy the father?
Right, yeah.
Like, is it Jimmy you're talking about? Because I can understand if he's traumatized and he's, you know, dealing with substance abuse from the result. Could have tied up the loose end of, okay, Laurie faked her death, you know, she put her daughter up for adoption. And then in the 2018 one, then the real reason why her daughter resented her is because she got put up for adoption, which again it makes you think that the daughter is really Jamie Lloyd because she says in the movie how Laurie lost custody of her when she was 12 years old.
Possibly, but at the same time, in the 2018 one, her daughter is like, it's not happening, it's over, you're overreacting again. You know, I feel like if it were Jamie having lived through everything that she did, she would be just as paranoid.
True. Anyway, so that's my defense on Michael Myers and my analysis of why they shouldn't have retconned the entire fucking franchise, because even part 4 and 5 is a seamless freaking transition.
Yes, it is.
Like part 4, okay, you know, you get what's going on, and then part 5, it comes right where part 4 stops.
Right.
It made sense. So what the fuck did you do with the other sequels? Just be like, yep, we need something to do. Oh, I know. Like,
yeah. It's like a recipe that everybody took and just made their own.
It was around that same time when they put Jason in space. So, I mean.
Yes. And then also the Freddy versus Jason.
No, I liked that one, but what I always found really funny was how Jason literally comes out of the water, but in Freddy versus Jason, he's terrified of water.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. I'll tell you that much.
Well, speaking of Jason, do we want to devil's advocate his mother or him or both?
We could do both. You could pick one and then I'll do one.
So his mother is tricky. You know, that's a hard one. Just because. Go ahead.
Let me interrupt you quick. Did you read the Friday the 13th comic books?
I did not know that there were comic books.
Okay.
So maybe you should do his mom.
So I'm gonna switch around here. I'm gonna give you Jason, and I get
okay.
Okay. So in the comic books, there's this whole story that Pamela, Mrs. Voorhees, was married to an abusive man. He beat her almost to death. That's why Jason was born deformed.
Oh, okay.
That's why they were so close, because he was all she had.
Yeah.
So when she says he wasn't a very good swimmer, he couldn't swim at all. So when she watched the campers not watching him and watch him die, maybe she was already traumatized from her abusive ex-husband and thought, well, now you just took the only thing I had.
And she snapped.
Yeah.
Fair, but then why did she wait so long to get her revenge, and then on camp counselors who weren't even the ones that did the whole thing?
But she didn't wait long, because in the very beginning of Friday the 13th, it starts off in 1958. Jason drowned in 1957. She was the camp cook.
Okay.
So, and then, because remember, there's like that scene and it says Camp Crystal Lake 1958, and then it says June 13th, the present, when Annie's walking down the road.
Yeah, so I thought that meant that it was like present as in the time that they filmed it, like the 70s.
Yeah, but there's a scene of the two counselors being murdered in 1958 in the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
So he was supposed to have died in 57, and then, you know, the truck driver goes through it in the truck. He goes, the boy drowning in two kids murdered in 58, the boy drowning in 57, a bunch of fires, and then in 1962 when they were going to open up, the water was bad. So clearly she was fucking with them for a long ass time.
Yeah, so it was just her motivation to make sure that the camp never opened ever again.
Right. But each time she failed until finally she slipped further and further and further into her insanity and decided to take out the entire goddamn camp.
Yeah.
Yep,
and I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory right there, is that, you know, her son was the only thing she had in life, and then she lost him, and so she snapped. I mean, we see that happen all the time in real life.
Yeah. Well, like I said, look at fucking Billy Loomis again.
Yeah.
He did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sean says, sounds like a Karen move, to be honest. Yeah, Pamela Voorhees would definitely ask to speak to the manager and then cut the manager's head right off. You looked at my son the wrong way? How dare you? Wham! Oh, man. But, you know, and like I said, it's very interesting to think about that. You know, to me, I always found it interesting that, like, when you're watching movies, you don't really pay attention to those little intricate details. And then you keep watching them over and over, and you're like, wait a minute. The two kids murdered in 58, the boy drowned in 57. Okay, this adds up.
Right. Yeah, it makes more sense.
Yeah. That's so crazy about her backstory with her abusive husband that explains so much and makes it so much scarier because of how real it makes it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And they don't talk about it in the movie. They don't talk about it in the series. It's only in the comic books. And the reason he was born deformed was because she was beaten so bad she almost died.
Right. And I get it's a horror movie and they want people to be scared. But I think it just makes the story so much more deep and painful when you hear that, like, this monster is actually, you know, a child who was abused from the womb.
Yeah.
You know, and then he was born deformed, and then of course he's gonna be bullied by assholes because he's deformed, you know, and he's just gonna be forgotten about and left on the wayside until he fucking literally dies because he drowns.
Right.
So
right, exactly. And you know, if his mother was to cook, like I said, you figure she saw it. She watched him die.
Yeah.
But here's one more thing though. If she wanted revenge on the camp counselors because they supposedly let him die, didn't she technically let him die too if she watched him drown?
I mean, so I don't know, because I haven't read the comics, but was it a matter of, like, she was in the kitchen or was off doing something and saw him in the distance drowning, and she saw it was her son in the water and she knew he couldn't swim and she just couldn't get to him in time? Or did she not even try? Because I would think that she's going through all this shit to avenge him, so I would think that
Right.
she would have at least tried.
Right. But they don't really touch on that much in the comic. They just say that she like in the movie they say that she was the cook and she was preparing meals. So maybe like maybe she even heard about it through the grapevine. Maybe she didn't know until she heard about it.
Yeah, until they told her.
Yeah. But, but here's something that's always struck me as weird though, because he comes out of the water at the end. Did he actually die?
Well, yeah, and then in the second one, they have the theory, the new counselors are talking at the bar and they come up with the theory of like, or even during the scary story session around the campfire, they're talking about like, oh yeah, he actually lived and he's been living in the woods this whole time.
He watched his mother die and then he exacted her.
Right.
Yeah.
But if that was the case, so I guess then they could have just said, he drowned and they were never able to recover his body. But if he was there living out in the woods near the camp and his mother was around the next year killing those two counselors and then the years following with the water getting all fucked up and the fires, wouldn't he have been like, oh, hey, there's my mom?
Yeah.
Like let me go to my mom.
Unless he...
Nope, you just cut out. Ruh-roh. Am I here alone now? Oh, that's gonna boot you off, isn't it? Alonna. Let's see if I can reach her elsewhere. Sorry for the technical difficulties, you guys. It wouldn't be one of our podcasts if we didn't have issues. Oh yeah, she got booted. Dang it. She's usually able to... Whoa, computer, what are you doing? She's usually able to pop back on pretty quick. Make sure. And with the big storm that we had last night, I know power lines are all screwed up and she was having some issues with her service this morning, so she might be... It's not technical difficulties, it's intermission. Yeah, that's right. So everyone go get a drink, go get a snack. Oh, wait, too late.
I
had a chance to get a snack and now it's done.
I am SpongeBob and my internet is the magic conch shell. Maybe someday. It's not technical difficulties, it's intermission. Yes, it is a quick break for Jamie. But as I was saying, they talk about in the bar scene specifically that he must have watched his mother get killed. But if he was living in the woods and he knew that was his mother, why didn't he stop it?
Oh my God, you're such an asshole!
Oh, God. Aww.
Karma's a bitch, babe.
Sean, we will find you.
Anyway, yes. So, yeah, if he watched his mother die, then he has seen her around. So why wouldn't he go to her?
Right. That's my point. Like, I guess it doesn't really build, but you know what? Let me move on from Halloween, Friday the 13th, part 2 and 3 and 4, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Friday the 13th, part 5, A New Beginning. Have you ever seen it?
If I have, it was a long time ago, and I don't remember it at all.
Okay, I'm gonna spoil it for you.
Okay, that's fine.
Jason's not the killer.
Ever?
No, not in part 5.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's why it's called A New Beginning. But it's interesting to me, and it's something that I wanted to dissect, but I'll just give you a little bit of a brief rundown. So in part five, there is this, I don't want to call it a hospital. It's like a home for like wayward kids. You know what I mean? Like a group home type thing.
Okay.
Right? Okay. And there's all kind of kids there, and that's where Tommy Jarvis goes. If you saw the end of the final chapter, that's where Tommy Jarvis ends up. So all of a sudden, these murders start occurring at this group home after this one kid named Joey is killed by another one of the residents in this group home. It turns out that the responding paramedic to this kid's murder was actually Joey's father.
Oh.
So Joey's father takes on the Jason persona and kills everybody in the group home.
Okay.
And they don't reveal it till the very end. You think it's Jason, but it's not. So, speaking on the topic of parents exacting revenge, you think about part 1 and part 2 and part 5. Because you're avoiding 3 and 4 in there because 3 and 4 is kind of just Jason having some fun, to be honest.
Right, yeah.
As sick as that sounds, that's just him having some fun. So you think about those 3 together, and you can't help but wonder, is it something at the camp that's making these people want to exact a revenge? Is there literally something in the water?
Right. And was it actually Mrs. Voorhees who was starting those fires and poisoning the water, or is the land just cursed?
Right. Because if you figure in part 1, you have Ralph say that it's got a death curse.
Right.
And if you watch the rest of the movies and you see, as I said, in part 5, that's not completely off the table, because figure this is a random guy, and I get it, yeah, that's traumatizing. He responded to his own son's murder. He was a paramedic, blah, 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 blah. But they explain in further detail that the reason why this Joey kid was in this group home was because he was an orphan, because his mother died giving birth to him, and the father took off. So if the father didn't want anything to do with him when he was born, why is he exacting his murder? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't quite make sense unless the father is, on the edge because of his own shit in his own life, and then this is just like the last straw. And even though he didn't want to be a part of this kid's life, it's like, everything I touch turns to shit kind of thing, and I'm just gonna go off the rails.
Right. But like I said, it seems more plausible that it's something in the water, because, and what brought Jason back if Jason was supposedly dead? If he was in the water, how did he come back?
Right. Because when they give that theory that maybe he didn't die, like, okay, well then how did he live? Because he couldn't swim, and he was in deep enough water that he drowned. So
Right.
And the fact that, okay, so then at the end of part 1, he jumps out of the water. Does he suddenly know how to swim now?
Right. Like, was he hiding under the boat? Is he a fucking sea monster now all of a sudden?
Right. So that makes me think that it's more of like the land is cursed.
Right.
Sean
said, I totally forgot about part 5. Yeah, well, Jamie's gonna forget about you. I'm kidding. But yeah, you wonder, is it the land? Because as I said, including part 3, because part 3 and part 4 or the final chapter, which we all know that sure as fuck wasn't the final chapter. It's always new campers. And why does Jason have a bone to pick with them? They didn't kill his mother.
Right.
They didn't kill him. And the guy, like I said, from part 5, what was his reasoning? The guy who kills Joey in part 5, he ends up getting arrested like right then and there, because there was witnesses to it. They saw him do it. So like, if the guy, like, why wouldn't you exact revenge just on that guy? Like, why are you going after everybody? You know what I mean?
Right. It makes
And
me think that Jason did die, but then that the spirit of the land is like using him to
right,
exact its revenge.
right. And they kind of touch on it a little bit in Jason Goes to Hell. I was just talking about it with one of my coworkers today. That is the weirdest fucking Friday the 13th movie I think I have ever seen.
I've
It's
never
weird.
seen it.
It's weirder than Jason X.
Oh,
Um, and Jason X is pretty out there.
yeah.
In Jason Goes to Hell, Jason's finally dead because it picks up right after the events of Jason Takes Manhattan. If you've seen that one,
The end of it.
it picks up right after that.
Okay.
And what ends up happening is the people that are on or around the lake, they start going insane and nobody knows why. Turns out that there was something with Jason's heart, and if they eat his heart, they'll become him. So that's how Jason lives on through the movie. These people are eating his heart, and then they're going out and they're turning into him.
Weird.
Yeah, I can safely say that was the weirdest Friday the 13th I have ever seen. And I have watched it multiple times, and I still don't understand what the fuck is happening.
Right. Well, I guess it kind of makes that could coincide with the theory that it's the land
Right.
because, then people are still being affected by it. They're consuming his heart in a sense of consuming the land and the spirit of the land.
Right. Was Camp Crystal Lake on an Indian burial ground? See, that's what I want to know. It doesn't
Right.
mention it in the comments. All that the comments bring up is Pamela Voorhees' backstory. That's all it
Yeah.
really gives you. Doesn't really give you much info about the camp or when the Christies took it over. As per canon. I don't know what you're talking about, Sean. I'm
Like
sorry.
that it's canon that it's
Yeah.
on Indian burial ground, that the writers that's what they intended.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Not that I've ever heard of, but it makes sense to me.
It does, because you see it in Pet Cemetery. Anything you bury in the Pet Cemetery comes back because it was an Indian burial ground.
Right.
It makes sense. And like I said, when you look into, and if you ever get the chance, you have to check out A New Beginning because it is good. It is a movie, but and then in Jason Lives, which is directly after part 5, it's part 6, then Jason's back. But okay, how did Jason come back? And then there's A New Blood, which is part 7. I just recently watched every Friday the 13th again, with the exception of Jason Goes to Hell. I'm still debating if I even want to watch that again. Anyway, so I just watched all of them because they were recently on TV. And in New Blood, you have this girl, and she's like a clairvoyant. She's a psychic, right?
Okay.
She has like telekinesis. It's almost like a Carrie meets Friday the 13th type shit.
Mm.
And there is a scene in the beginning, right, where the girl's a little girl. And Jason's supposedly under the water. There's even a narrator that says people forget he's down there waiting, etc., etc., etc. So there's a scene in the very beginning where the girl is listening to her parents argue. And her dad slaps her mother, and the girl runs out onto the boat launch. She runs out, she gets in the boat, and her parents are trying to talk her into coming back to shore. And she says, "I hate you. I wish you were dead." And then all of a sudden, as soon as she says that, the boat dock gives way and her father falls into the water. And is supposedly attacked by Jason. Jason doesn't come out of the water yet. Jason has nothing to do with this yet. But this girl supposedly caused that to happen.
Right.
But they were already living on Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
So it ties into the burial ground shit.
Right.
It would make sense. Freddy Krueger does not deserve any defense. If you read into his backstory, he can fucking burn. Nope.
Again.
Yeah. Burn, come back, and then go burn again.
Yes.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm not going to say it on here. Go look up Freddy Krueger's backstory, because no.
Yeah, no.
Nope.
He doesn't get a defense.
Nope. Chucky, he's iffy because he had no motive. Absolutely none. And he talks about it in the later movies. But what was interesting was, I don't know if it's Curse of Chucky or Cult of Chucky. It's the most recent one. he was actually in love with this girl's mother, and the girl was already married, or no, her mother was married and pregnant with her, and that's what turned him into a serial killer. That's how he ended up in the toy store that night. So that ties that up. But otherwise, he has no real motive onto the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Audience, is there anyone that you would like us to devil's advocate for? Because there's a lot out there. I mean, we could make this a multiple part series if we wanted to.
Oh yeah, that would actually be fun.
Yeah, especially if we could get, or you and I could just go back and forth as like defense and prosecution kind of thing.
Yeah, that'd be even more fun. Sean said Frankenstein's monster. We already did that.
Pay attention.
Yeah, instead of
you never listen to me.
Instead of working outside the door, pay attention. Jigsaw. Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I can get down with that. I haven't seen Saw in a hot minute, but I know enough about Jigsaw. I think we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, it's been a long time for me as well. From what I understand, he was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't remember what happened after that to drive him to do what he did, unless that was the motivating factor.
I think it was the cancer. I think like he wanted I don't know if it was like a feel my pain type of thing. I don't really remember the first one. The last Saw I watched was Saw 7.
Oh my god. Yeah. See, I saw the first and second one, and I think I started to see the third one, and I was just like, this is dumb.
Yeah. So. I mean, I do appreciate Jigsaw, but he's another one. But here's the thing though. If he was diagnosed with cancer, you can kind of get the mental toll that takes on people. And maybe in some way he just wanted his real life back.
It could be. It could also be that he wants, like, you've seen Fight Club.
Yeah.
The part in Fight Club where Tyler Durden has a gun to that store clerk's head, and he's scaring the shit out of him and also asking him, like, hey, what, you were going to college, what were you going for? And basically the moral of it is the reason he does this is to scare this guy so much that, he's going to die, that, well, holy shit, if I'm going to die right now, then I should have a life worth living. So go back to school to be a vet. Right. So he kind of basically scares him into living and enjoying life. So maybe that was part of Jigsaw's morality behind what he was doing. He was trying to, because he was dying of cancer, maybe he wanted people to see, like, life is short. These horrible things can happen to you. So go out and enjoy what you have.
Right, exactly. And I mean, as always, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. We are not in any way agreeing with how these characters are.
No, this is just for fun.
Yeah, we're just trying to maybe give them a little bit different of an outlook.
Right, yeah.
Maybe they're not all bad. Chelsea said trying to steer them to be better people. Also, that one also made sense too. Because you figure they're people from all different walks of life, they're all different kinds of people.
Well, and in the second one, you're introduced to the woman who ends up being like his assistant, who's helping him. Because when he took her and did the same thing to her, she lived through it. She survived his shit. And at the time, she was a drug addict. And after that, she got clean. Because she realized, if I'm going to fight this hard for my life to live, then I'm going to make it a life worth living. Granted, she turns around and, like, does the same shit. But maybe in her mind, she sees it that way too, of like, maybe this is actually more helping people, as cruel and unusual as it is.
Right, exactly. And, it's kind of like a cruel and unusual punishment type thing. I think I would like to see a Saw movie where they do that, but it's all awful people. Like people like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that'd be really fucking cool. Yeah. So if anybody from Universal Studios is watching this, please get on it. I will even write you the script. But I don't know what name I almost said. Sean said Hannibal. Hannibal Lecter is a tricky one, because he's based off of Ed Gein, who, for those who don't know, was a serial killer, necrophiliac, and grave robber.
Well,
who literally made furniture out of his victims' bodies.
so are you talking about Hannibal or Buffalo Bill?
Hannibal.
Hannibal was, really?
Yes.
I
Yes.
didn't know that. I thought it was Buffalo Bill who, if
No.
you guys know on Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill is the serial killer that Clarice is trying and the FBI are trying to track down.
Yeah.
And then they go to Hannibal Lecter for help and advice.
Right. Hannibal and Buffalo Bill are based off of multiple serial killers, as is Norman Bates. Norman Bates is also based off of Ed Gein. Buffalo Bill is partially based off Ed Gein, so is Hannibal Lecter, but Hannibal Lecter is also based off of Ted Bundy as well. Because Ted Bundy actually did help, I forget who it was. Was it the Green River Killer?
I think so.
He helped the cops track the Green River Killer because he gave him advice and said, look, here's how he's going to think. Here's what he's going to do. Here's how, here's how you get him. Here's his next move, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So he was based off of like a multitude. But the main inspiration for Hannibal was Ed Gein. Right.
Who was so fucked up. Like, a lot of the shit that he had in his house, the furniture and accessories, like the famous nipple belt, which I think you can find pictures of online, but I wouldn't recommend it because, gross.
I don't know if it was a lampshade or was it like a pull thing for blinds, was made out of human lips.
Oh yeah, that's right. Blech. Puts a new meaning to armchair. Yeah. Yes, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, he actually, a lot of the body parts that he got to make that shit, he got from cemeteries. He was a grave robber as well.
Yeah.
So
there was a rumor that he killed his brother too, and that was like his first taste of it because his mother was like the mother in Carrie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like afraid of her, but he was also like a Norman Bates, and that's where Psycho came from, because Alfred Hitchcock, if you've ever seen the movie Hitchcock, if you haven't, I recommend it. That it explains how he came up with Psycho, everything, and it's not a documentary. It's like an actual, like, Anthony Hopkins plays Alfred.
Mm-hmm.
But how he came up with it was he approached Joseph Stefano about what gives him the most rage in his life. And now he had already read the book Psycho, which is based off of Ed Gein, but to make it into a movie, the response that Joseph Stefano gave to Alfred Hitchcock was, my love life, etc., my mother. And that's how Psycho, the movie, was born. Because he just so happened to get a right screenwriter who also had mommy issues to write the script. Now, Sean said Patrick Bateman / Norman Bates. I have not seen American Psycho in many, many years, so I can't really discuss Patrick Bateman. I have to get caught up on American Psycho again. But as for Norman Bates, he's another one who was based off of Ed Gein.
Mm-hmm. Well, Patrick Bateman, so I love the movie American Psycho. Christian Bale did a phenomenal job. I was not able to get through the book. If you try to read the book, beware. It's a very rough read. After the part where I didn't last very long after the part where he talks about torturing a puppy for fun. After that, I was kind of like, okay. And then shortly after that, I had to put it down. Yeah. But if we're just going to go strictly off the movie, I think the pressure that he felt to fit in, to be the best of the best of the best, to be successful, to be a ladies' man, to be the man's man of the 80s, being a stockbroker, I think it just all was too much for him. I think his brain just melted basically into this horrible soup of murder and dismemberment. because even at the end of the movie, you're like, wait, did any of this actually happen? Because people are telling him, like, oh no, Paul Allen's, off somewhere. I just spoke to him. And so I think his mind was probably fragile from the start, but then all that pressure, I think it got to him and he crumpled underneath it.
I agree. I think that it was like a perfection type thing, and he was, like you said, he just couldn't handle the pressure anymore. And I think he slipped further and further into in fuck insanity as time went on.
Yeah. And the perfection thing, it's like the whole basis of the movie and the book. Everything has to be perfect. Like,
Yep.
and then especially if you read the book, he goes into so much detail about like the stupidest shit that doesn't matter, like his facial routines and and you see it in the movie too, and like business cards and like and what he eats, and it's just like it's stuff that doesn't matter, but being in that world and trying to climb the corporate ladder and be perfect, that's the shit that does matter, but that's also the shit that's going to make you fucking crazy.
Right. Now, if you move on to Norman Bates, did you see the other 3 Psycho movies, Psycho 2, Psycho 3, and Psycho 4?
No, but I did see, and again, it's been a while, but I saw the remake with Vince Vaughn.
Good movie. Anyway, Psycho 2, 3, and 4 focus a lot more on Norman's life. Psycho 2 talks about, like when he was a teenager. Psycho 3 talks about him wanting to become a better person. And Psycho 4 is actually him on the phone with a talk show talking about how he's afraid he's going to slip. And he's detailing his entire life story again. So in his life story, they don't talk about it in they do talk about it in the first Psycho, but they don't really, confirm it. They say that they believe Norman killed his mother and her boyfriend with strychnine. They do confirm that in the fourth Psycho. He says that he did do that, and that the reason being was because Norman had a girlfriend, and it was like, I think it's supposed to be like the 40s or the 50s. I don't know what decade it's supposed to be, but I know that Norman has a girlfriend and he tries to have sex with her, and the mother comes in and calls her a fucking slut, throws her out of the house, beats her, whole 9 yards, and Norman retaliates because this is a girl he loved, and yeah, he was young, but his mother like really was like, well, you belong to me and nobody else,
right?
Type shit. So he kind of retaliated, but once he killed her, he regretted doing so. So that's why he kept her in the hotel, and that's why he killed Marion Crane, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of play devil's advocate with him and say, because there's also a scene, I don't know if it's in Psycho 3 or 4, but there's a scene where it's proven that he killed his father. And you need to watch the 4 of them because Anthony Perkins is in every movie. So that's
cool.
He plays Norman in every movie. And he does a fucking fantastic job as usual. But there's a scene where he pushed a ladder or something on his father, and but you wonder, was he born with some kind of mental illness? Because when you get to the 4th one, and you'll see what I mean if you ever watch it, you'll see what I mean. He explains how he doesn't want to be like that anymore, but he has a wife now in the 4th one. He has a wife and she's pregnant, and he is afraid of her having the baby because he doesn't want the baby to be anything like him.
Right.
So that makes you think, okay, he's recognizing what he's done. He's recognizing that it's wrong. He doesn't want his spawn to turn out like that. Okay, this seems like this is more mental than this is like a retaliation type thing.
Right. And I think it makes sense with, as you're saying, his character is based off of Ed Gein. And for those of you who don't know, Ed Gein's mother was psycho. She was super duper religious, and she would tell her sons all the time that women are evil, women are whores, and
Even
they're worthless and don't waste your time on them.
even
And
if she was
so,
cool, which I find ironic. Anyway.
right. So if Norman Bates's mother was like that, and then he gets this girlfriend, it kind of self-fulfills what his mother has been telling him.
Right.
And so it scrambles up his brain pretty much, because it's like he has these normal natural urges, and then he has all of this conditioning from his mother, so he reacts and kills his mother, but then resents himself for doing that. He
Which
wishes
she, yeah.
right. And then so enter the first movie.
Right. And then enter Marion Crane. Again, now, when you look at the first cycle, hold on, I'm just sharing this because I forgot to share it. But when you look at the first Psycho movie, what's interesting is his mother's voice telling him to kill her. And
Yeah.
once you learn his mother's backstory, it made sense. But he kills Marion Crane because he's afraid that he's going to be attracted to her, and his mother would never approve.
Right. And where does he kill her? In the shower.
When she's naked.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then maybe he can justify it in his mind with his mother's way of thinking of, like,
she's a whore.
Of course, she's a whore. Look, she's naked.
Yeah. Yeah. So
even though, yeah, she's in the shower, but
yeah. So
psycho minds think that way.
Right. And that's what I said. That made sense in that it's like a mental thing, but it's also, I don't know if it's a love for his mother or if it's a fear of his mother in the
Both.
movie.
Probably both.
Yeah. And that's why he acts the way he does. And I always found it interesting that he shows remorse in the last movie after his mother's long gone. And, I mean, it's like with anything. I mean, obviously it's a fictional movie, but, some people can be rehabilitated and some can't. But it's just interesting to see how his life story plays out throughout these 3 movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean said Annie Wilkes from Misery. Kathy Bates was awesome in that movie.
Oh my God, she was. She was so good in that role. And again, that's another character who is very religious. And that's also a theme of Stephen King's, because I mean, like you had mentioned, Carrie's mother, like
Carrie, yeah.
So
yeah.
I think she lived out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
She seemed to be a very lonely person. She's running this farm by herself.
Right.
Granted, it's winter, but like, where are her? Does she have any siblings? Where are her parents? She's a little awkward, so she's by herself all the time. And the only thing that she's ever had to make her feel connected to the world, to other people, is these books. So when she meets the author, like, of course, it's a miracle that he really fell into her lap like that. And when he turns out to not be what she expects, it's a huge letdown for her. It's a huge disappointment. So it really breaks her heart, and she just desperately wants that feeling of connection and understanding that she got from the books.
Right.
So I think it makes sense that she wants that so badly that she's willing to force him to do it. Right.
Exactly. And, it's kind of like, she thought he was going to be something that he wasn't, because he portrayed himself in that way. And it was kind of like to me, again, it kind of comes into, well, okay, they're fake. Like they're just like everybody else. Like,
right. Exactly.
And, you look at these horror movies, most of the time your villains are like discarded by society. Bullied, abused, abandoned, etc., etc., etc. So, it made sense that when they latch on to something like that and then it blows up in their face, they kind of go ape shit.
Yeah, that was the only thing that was left keeping them holding on to sanity.
Exactly. Oh, hello, Ray. Sybil is still one of the scariest movies to me. I have not seen it. I'm sorry.
I haven't seen Sybil. Mm-mm.
I'm sorry. I haven't seen it. Yo, can we talk about how the real fucking predator in Jaws is the fucking mayor?
Oh my god, I know.
Can we talk about
Yes.
how he's the real predator?
Yes, absolutely. He's the real bad guy in that movie.
He is. Even in part 2, he's still a fucking asshole, and I wish the shark would have eaten him.
Yeah, no kidding. Just wanting to keep the beaches open no matter what. And
Yeah. I mean, no offense to Murray Hamilton, rest in peace. He was a wonderful actor, but
right.
he really did a good job of making you hate his character, because by the time you're not even halfway through Jaws, I don't care what you think about Quint or Hooper or Brody or any of them. The fact is that fucking is it Marty? Yeah, Marty Vaughn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Vaughn is the biggest jerk off on the
Yes.
planet, who's only thinking about number one, and that's himself. And then when he finally comes to the realization that, oh shit, I have to close the beaches, is when it involves his family directly, because he says, well, my kids were on that beach too. Okay, so how many people had to die before you finally made that decision that, oh shit, my kids were there, now it's affecting me?
Right. Yep. And then when he twists Brody's arm the first time to be like, oh no, just say it was a boating accident. You have to, you know? And it's like, no one talks about how he is a piece of shit for having this all happen. And then when they catch a shark, you know, he's like, oh yeah, that's it. Nope, that's the shark.
And Hooper clearly says that's not the shark that did it.
Right.
He clearly says that. It's not the shark. But the thing that always kind of pissed me off was when Mrs. Kintner blames Brody for Alex's death. I mean, yeah, Brody didn't close the beaches, but really, Mayor Vaughn was the one pulling the strings in that operation. So
right.
it wasn't really Brody's fault. I mean, I'm not saying he was like an angel character, because he did some very suspicious things too, but you know, you can't really fault him when it's the mayor who's given him these orders. You know, say it was a boating accident, only close the beaches for 24 hours, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then in part 2, when Brody says that there's another shark, and Marty doesn't believe him, and he fires him, and then at the end, guess what happens? Marty's kids are again involved, and he says, "Oh shit, there's another shark."
Yep.
Like, bro, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. If I was like the mayor, and first of all, I would have had it solved the first time. But like, if you came to me for a second time and said we have another shark, I would have said, all right, close the beaches till you find it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the greed. Like, Jaws to me is like watching one of the 7 deadly sins, because it's greed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And pride, because he wants to, because it's an election year.
Yeah.
You know, so he wants to look good.
Exactly. So that's like watching like some of the 7 deadly sins right there. And, you know, people, like I said, people have said, oh, well, Quint's the bad guy, and Hooper's the bad guy, and Brody's the bad guy. They're all assholes in their own respect. I personally love Quint's character. And as far as Hooper goes, I always had a crush on Richard Dreyfuss, so we're gonna leave that alone. John says, Jaws, along with the alien, can you really fault animals for doing animal things? No,
right, exactly.
Same thing with Cujo. It's not Cujo's fault he got bitten by a rabid bat.
Right. And with Jaws, it's a shark out in the ocean. You're in his fucking territory.
Right.
Like, if you go into the woods and a bear attacks you, like, can you blame the fucking bear?
That's like if somebody just randomly walked into your house and was just like, I'll open your zone. Like, what?
Yeah. You're just gonna be like, oh yeah, that's fine. Have fun, yeah. and then leave whenever you feel like it. That's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. You know, just do whatever. Chelsea said, the sharks weren't the bad guys in Deep Blue Sea either. You can't give an apex predator intelligence after keeping it captive, and then Pikachu face when they use it to fight and kill everyone to attempt to escape.
Right. Exactly. It goes back to Frankenstein's creation. Like,
yeah. You did this.
You made this.
Same thing with Pet Sematary. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh,
100% Lewis is at fault.
Yes.
In Pet Sematary 2.
Fucking dumbass.
Yeah. In Pet Sematary 2, Jeff and what the hell's the other guy's name? Drew. They're both at fault too.
Yes. Because they knew better.
Yeah.
They fucking knew better, man.
especially Drew. He fucking lived there. He knew what the pet cemetery was. He knew what it did, and he was just like, "Let's try it and see."
Right.
Like, bro, I'm sorry. Go eat another fucking Twinkie.
Well, my big fault with Pet Sematary, the first one, is Judd. Like, they would have never known that was back there if he hadn't told them.
Like, why did he have to tell them?
Right, and then take him there and bury them. Like, why? Just don't even tell them.
Like, just.
It was like the longest hike ever to get up there. They're not going to find that on their own.
Right, like, just let it be. And, then in Pet Sematary 2, you figure when, the zombie dog, Zowie, when, I forget if Zowie's a he or she.
He.
When he kills, Gus.
Mm-hmm.
Why in their right mind do they see what that dog is acting like and hear the stories of what happened to people you put in the Pet Cemetery?
Mm-hmm.
Think, oh, okay, let's just bring Gus back. Everything will be fine.
Right. If anything, zombie Zowie killing Gus was like the perfect problem-solving situation because, all right, so Gus, that piece of shit, he's dead. Great. And
Because
they're going to end up putting the dog down because he killed someone.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah. And Gus killed Zowie in the first fucking place.
Yes.
Yeah. Pet Cemetery with the Achilles heel scene had me fucked up as a kid. Dude.
Yeah.
No, honestly, Pet Cemetery 2, in the scene where Clancy Brown takes the dirt bike to that kid's face, that had me fucked up.
Oh, yeah, that was really fucked up.
Yeah, because there's like, in the TV version, they don't show it, but I think they show it like in the DVD and VHS version, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's messed up.
Yeah, that had me fucked up. But me and my friend always laugh, and we really shouldn't, but there's like that scene with like the potato truck, and he just bats up over the potato. We're just like, what the fuck did the potato do to him? Like, okay, it's not enough to kill your wife and her son. No, now you gotta run over a poor defenseless fucking potato.
Well, and to kill your wife, girlfriend, whatever, and her son, because that's not Gus isn't his biological father.
Right, Gus is his stepfather. But
Yeah.
here's the thing.
Killing a ton of potatoes, man. That's cold.
Yeah, like I don't understand.
Also a little hilarious.
Mm-hmm. It's humor, I'm not gonna lie. Plus, Edward Furlong looks good as hell in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's young, but
it
was before he went downhill.
Yeah, it was before he went downhill, and you figured the first time I saw him, I was young too. So I mean, it's not weird to say, "Oh my god, he was hot."
Right? Yeah, I think he was one of my first crushes when I was a kid. When I saw him in Terminator, yeah.
I saw him in Terminator, then Pet Sematary 2, then Brain Scan. I love that movie, and I wish we could talk about that, but I know you haven't seen it yet, so you have to, so we can talk about that on our next segment. All I'm going to say is, for those people who have seen Brain Scan, I don't know if anybody out there even really has, because it's kind of an obscure movie, but it's kind of starting to catch on now. It's becoming like a cult classic now. All I'm going to say is Michael did nothing wrong. Trickster is the real bad guy, but in reality, Michael kind of brought Trickster into his life. So, I mean, there's that can of worms. Anyway, and the rest is up for suspect because you haven't seen it yet.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And I love Trickster and his love of Primus. Just a little spoiler for you.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no, and with Carrie too, you have the overly religious mother. And in reality, again, which goes back to Friday the 13th, what's wrong with Carrie that she's able to kill all of these people with just her mind? Like in Friday the 13th, New Blood. Clearly they got that from fucking Carrie because New Blood came out way after Carrie did.
Mm.
And another one that I want to discuss, because, Carrie's cut and dry. She was born with these psychokinetic powers. She has mommy and she's the end. Okay.
Yeah, and everyone bullied her. And pretty much the whole school did deserve to die because she was suffering and no one cared to do anything about it.
Right.
Except
for
Tommy.
Tommy and Sue. Yeah.
Yeah, and the gym teacher.
Yeah. In the remake especially, I felt bad for Tommy. He didn't deserve that. Not even in the original, because he was like he was the only one. Him and Sue, like I said, were the only two like of the student body that were nice to her.
Yeah.
But anyway, another one I want to talk about is The Shining.
Oh, yes, and you know what? I just finished reading the book. So,
Yeah.
I can tell you that I hate Jack's character. He is a fucking asshole. If you read the book, it's just every other thought of his is beating down Wendy, like tearing her down and just being horrible to her. And she's just being like the best partner ever. Just trying her hardest to be supportive and understanding and not blaming him or pointing the finger, accusing him or anything, and just trying to be there. Yes, poor Wendy.
Yes.
And
also poor Wendy, not to interrupt you, but that scene in The Shining where she has that really long ass fucking cigarette ash. I think that that's the scariest part of the whole movie.
But yeah, so it's hard. So putting that aside, because we have to play devil's advocate here. So defending Jack, he's a recovering alcoholic, and he's really trying. He really is. All my shit aside, or with it, whatever he does, he is trying. But because he is struggling with that, the hotel hones in on that and really takes advantage of him because he's in a weakened state because he's struggling. And if you read the book, you also see that he grew up with a very abusive alcoholic father, and but he still loved his father, but it was a fucked up relationship, very much the way that his own relationship was with Danny. And so, having that trauma, because
Danny.
Right. Yeah.
Because he breaks his arm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, growing up, seeing your father beat the shit out of your mother and having the shit beat out of you by your father, it traumatizes you. And they go into depth with his issues with that and his trauma. And so it's like the hotel is feeding into that, like, you're special, you're chosen, we want you here, and so it really feeds in on that as well.
Yeah. And I think that, the isolation, especially as time goes on, and they say, that Dick Halloran is actually a hallucination, but I think that Dick is the real unsung hero of The Shining because I think that he is a guardian angel because he knew Dick Halloran isn't a hallucination because you see him throughout the movie. Other people can see him. He's not a ghost yet, but he knew what was going to happen if Danny stayed in that hotel.
Yeah.
And because he knew that Danny had the gift. He knew he had the Shining.
Right. The strongest he'd ever seen.
Right. Exactly. And he knew that the hotel would eventually come for him like it did for Jack.
Right. Yeah. Because it was Danny that the hotel really wanted because his Shining was so strong.
Right. Chelsea says, shout out and love to Shelley Duvall for her portrayal of Wendy. Yeah, shout out Shelley. She did good. And honestly, Jack Nicholson did a goddamn good job of really making you despise Jack.
Yeah, and he really, after reading the book, he did a good job of portraying Jack. It's just Kubrick he did such a disservice to the actual book because it's so different and it doesn't go into enough stuff. Like, Wendy is a lot tougher in the book. Yeah. Like, she doesn't fuck around in some parts, and she's just like in the book, she's afraid of the elevator, and then like she doesn't because she's afraid of getting trapped on it. Right. And then all this stuff is happening, and she's seeing how it's affecting her son and her husband, and it's freaking her out. And then she ends up climbing into the elevator when it's like half on their floor, and she still crawls up in there to investigate. Like, she's a lot tougher than Kubrick portrayed her.
I don't know if you have a DVD player, like a PlayStation or an Xbox or whatever, but I do have the version of The Shining that Stephen King wanted released, which is the Stephen King version, not made by Kubrick.
Yes, I need to watch that again.
I do
Sean
have
has it ready to go for us to watch. Because
Shadow.
I saw it once a long, long time ago, but from what I remember, it is way more accurate.
Oh yeah, because that's how Stephen King wanted it to be. He wanted it to be
Right.
the way it was released. The
But it
mini
just sucks because Jack Nicholson did do such a good job.
he did, and I wish he would have went back. But you know what? Jack Nicholson is good at playing those psychological parts. He did a goddamn good job as the Joker too.
Yes, yeah,
He was good, and he is believable that he's absolutely batshit out of his mind, and that's what made him such a good Jack Torrance. And I wish they would have recasted him for the Stephen King version, but I get it. Stephen King wanted to completely cut himself off from the Kubrick version. I get
yeah,
it, but I still think they should have brought Jack Nicholson back,
yeah,
100%, because they could have did that with Doctor Sleep too. And I know Jack Nicholson is now retired; he's much older; he's well into his 80s now. But with
hmm
Doctor Sleep, there's a flashback to Jack sitting at the bar. They could have they used some guy who kind of looked like Jack Nicholson. They could have just CGI'd him in there from the original Shining movie, and it would have looked a hell of a lot better.
yeah,
I think they kind of dropped the ball on that one and really did Jack a huge disservice, because he really, really, truly did a good job on The Shining. And as much as, like I said, Kubrick did a disservice, Jack Nicholson really made up for it.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And it sucks that in Doctor Sleep they went with the storyline of Kubrick's version of the movie. But I
right,
get it because that's the most well-known one.
right.
Um, but it sucks because
And
like
the
if I
best,
were Stephen King, I'd be pissed because it's like you fucked up the first one, and
yeah,
now it's so well known that we have to fuck up we have to fuck up Doctor Sleep in the film
right.
as well by
Well,
changing it.
what's interesting is they changed Doctor Sleep a lot, because I don't know if you read the Doctor Sleep
Yeah, I
book.
did. It was
Okay,
so good.
it is. But what I found interesting was how Abra, um,
Mm-hmm.
how in the book she was a baby born right before 9/11, and the reason
Yes.
how they knew she was psychic was because she screamed bloody murder when 9/11 was happening. But in Doctor Sleep, that's not the storyline they're going with. They just say, "Oh,
Right.
she's a psychic. She can do this and that and that thing." I think that the original storyline with the um her being born right before that. I mean, unfortunately, the 20th anniversary of that just passed, and that was a something that was rough. But I think that would have been a good storyline and would have made you understand Abra a little bit more, and how she became a psychic, because she was literally born like that. It wasn't just
Yeah.
like I hated reading the book and then seeing that scene where it's like her 5th birthday and like all the knives are on the ceiling, because that's not in the book.
Wasn't it spoons in the
Yeah,
book?
yeah, it was spoons, and like I said,
But knives are
her,
scary.
her parents. Yeah, her parents figured out she was psychic because of when that happened. She knew it was going to happen,
Right.
like the events in 9/11. And they don't talk about that. Actually, I think they made her much younger in the movie than they did in the book. I think like they made her like 11 or 12, and she's supposed to be like well, yeah, I know the book was released in 2013, but the movie came out in 2019. So she would have been born in like 2007. So they had that wrong right there.
Yeah.
There. If they would have went back instead of making it 2019, because I think that the actual book is based or the actual movie is based in 2019. Actually,
Yeah,
I
I
think
think so.
that, I think that had they have gone back where the original book was based in 2013, it would have made a lot more sense as to how she's 12 years old. Because I mean, yeah, you had tragic events happen in 2007, but nothing major like that would explain how she became, how they knew she was a psychic.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that was just a bid. FYI, there are blackouts occurring all over the area, so everyone knows. South Ward is out of power right now. Yes, so is Shepton. I have a friend who lives in Shepton who's been without power all day.
Cool.
Stay safe to all my friends in Schuylkill County. Yeah, I heard it was a tornado, as WNEP says. The guy from Podcast 16, a tornado.
So it was a tornado.
That's what I heard. That's what I keep hearing.
So,
I
I wouldn't be surprised because the wind that I saw last night, it was the worst wind I've ever seen. It was intense.
We didn't get strong wind, but up here, the lightning reminded me of a literal horror movie because it was like this. Look at, hold on. Wait. Oh, shit, I turned it off. It was like that outside, like for like 20 solid minutes.
Yeah, that's how it was here too. And we got red lightning too, which I've never seen before in my life. I didn't know that was a thing.
We didn't get red. We just got regular white, but it was like flashing like for like at least 20 minutes.
It was just like nonstop.
Yeah. I had my air conditioner on the whole time. I didn't hear jack shit. I heard the thunder. I didn't really hear the rain.
Yeah, the rain didn't last that long.
Yeah, stay safe to all my friends and family down that way. And thinking of you, and I hope you get power back ASAP. I heard that power lines are down everywhere, so
yeah,
safe. And I love you. That's a really shitty heart, so I'm gonna do that. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. And I am out of defense, and we've been on for an hour and a half anyway, so
which is stretching from what we normally do, but like we said, we can make this a multi-part series if we wanted to.
Oh yeah, 100%. But for those of you who are just joining, if you want to see this again, like this segment, comment down below. We will not defend Freddy Krueger or Chucky, so don't ask.
Yeah, don't even bother.
Especially not Freddy Krueger. The only reason we won't do Chucky is because he has no motive. That's the only reason. Like there's no reason for Chucky.
It's just he is an asshole.
Yeah. If you don't know about Freddy Krueger's backstory, I recommend you look it up because I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah.
Chelsea said I want a part 2. I also want a part 2. I think a part 2 would be fun if we did like a defense versus prosecution, and like each of us come up with a solid argument to defend, and the other one comes up with a solid argument to prosecute.
Yeah. Bring your A game, because I have worked as legal assistant for both prosecution and defense.
Fair enough. There may be some yelling, but it's okay.
Maybe we should get a judge.
Yeah, we should. Who wants to be the judge? Chelsea said yes, debate. No, that wouldn't be a debate. I think if we were in the same room, we would physically like yeet something at each other. Like just fucking like Sean said, I'll bring my hammer. It's a gavel. Okay, you can implement.
He knows. He just wants to bring a hammer.
Yeah, okay. And you can charge admission too, Sean.
Yeah.
You can charge admission to watch that, but I want a cut of it. And the winner gets Sean's hammer.
There we go.
There we go. Because I can never find my hammer. Yesterday, I was trying to hang up my mask on the wall, and I was like, where the fuck's my hammer? It took me like 25 minutes to find it, so... And
before we sign off, I did want to shamelessly plug my first novelette book in my zombie apocalypse series. The final segment of it is going up tonight at midnight. But trade secret, I actually put it up at like 11:30. So that will be available, and then not next week, but the following week, book 2 will start up. And that is all on Wattpad, and it's all free. So be sure to hop on over there and see what that's all about. It's basically anyone who loves horror movies, books, TV shows. If a zombie apocalypse would happen, how they would survive it. And it's very horror comedy, so it's kind of lighthearted, but then there are also serious tones. So it's very interesting.
Spoiler alert, I read the first book and I loved it.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that tonight. That releases midnight, 11:30. So be there or be square.
Hell yeah. You know, you don't want to be SpongeBob. So be there. Although sometimes you do want to be SpongeBob.
Sometimes.
And you just want to live in a pineapple under the sea.
Everyone has always said, why is SpongeBob so happy? He's just a fry cook. That's not a good role model for kids. And it's like, why not? He loves it. He's happy.
He loves his life.
He's
just to exist.
That is a wonderful story for kids.
Like
do what you love, no matter what it is.
Exist. Well, this has been Ghoulfriends. I'm Alonna.
And I'm Jamie.
And we'll catch you next time. I love this thing.